good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar on PSEA. Amalina has mentioned PSEA stands for Protection from Sexual Exploitation and Abuse. And today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the definitions of what PSEA is, why is it different, or how is it different from SGBV or gender-based violence, and then also looking at how we can respond to PSEA cases if they ever come to our attention. So what we are covering today is first to identify, right? So identifying unacceptable behaviors and learning how we can prevent sexual exploitation and abuse. And then we're also going to be looking at reporting. So how is it that we can report SEA? Why is it important that we do so? So now I mentioned at the top, and I talk about GBV, and one question that comes up a lot is what exactly is the difference between sexual exploitation (SE), sexual abuse (SA), and GBV? Now, the main difference between GBV and sexual exploitation and abuse is that sexual exploitation and abuse looks at specifically uh, things that are being committed by either UNHCR staff or UNHCR partners, right? So if we look right now, what you see on the screen, sexual exploitation is defined as something that is committed by UNHCR or our partner against a refugee or asylum seeker. Now, what sexual exploitation is an abuse of vulnerability, differential power, or trust, um, and where the victim's sexual activity generates benefits. Now, if this sounds maybe a little bit too convoluted, don't worry, we will give you some examples in the next slide. Where sexual abuse, as you can see again, the perpetrators or the ones who are committing it are UNHCR and UNHCR partners, and the ones who are the victims are refugees and asylum seekers. And what sexual abuse is, the definition of it is a physical intrusion of a sexual nature, either by force or by coercion. I just want to reiterate again, you will hear when I move over to the next slide, examples of SE and SA, which sound as if they should be under GBV. And the reality of the matter is that SEA is a form of GBV, but it is the matter that UNHCR takes very seriously because we want to ensure that those who work for UNHCR or those who are with UNHCR partners are not committing these acts, which is why, under the definition of SEA, the persons who commits this are going to be those who are UNHCR or UNHCR partners. So later on, when we talk about reporting and how you can highlight these kind of cases, how would you be able to identify if this case is in fact SEA as opposed to a GBV case would be to look at who's the one that commits it. And if the one committing it is somebody who works for UNHCR or one of our partners, that's how you would be able to identify and say this is something that is done and that would fall under SEA. Now, I will now show you the examples of what SE and SA are. So, sexual exploitation would include offering money, gifts, or a job in exchange for sex. So this would be, for example, if a UNHCR officer offers money to a refugee in order to have sex with them, that would be sexual exploitation. There's also withholding due services or blackmailing for sex. What this could look like would be, say, a UNHCR partner that does health services, that runs a clinic, and refugees go to the clinic, and the a doctor who works at the clinic says, "Oh, I will not treat you, or I won't provide you the medication that you need unless you sleep with me." So that's the withholding of the services for sex. That would be exploitation, sexual exploitation. And one more form of sexual exploitation is hiring of sex workers. So what you would see here under sexual exploitation, the key thing that differentiates it with sexual abuse is that sexual exploitation is always a using the power differential between the two persons, right? So on the one hand, you will have the UNHCR staff or UNHCR partner staff who holds power exploiting the vulnerability of the refugee. they offer money or a job in exchange for sex, or they withhold a service for sex, or if the person is a sex worker, then they're exploiting their position as a sex worker for their own benefit. Those are all forms of sexual exploitation. Sexual abuse, on the other hand, could be unwanted kissing, touching, grabbing, or rubbing. This could be, for example, if a person comes to UNHCR for a registration interview, and during the course of the interview, the UNHCR interviewer starts touching them or grabbing them in an unwanted manner, that could be sexual abuse. Rape or attempted rape, this is pretty straightforward. And then any sexual activity with a child. So child is defined um, broadly under under the UN as a person who is under the age of 18. So any sexual activity with a child will be considered sexual abuse. It is not a defense if the person says, I didn't know that the person was not under 18 years old. So what you can see here, what makes sexual abuse would be where there's some form of force being exerted, where there's no consent, where the person is coerced into doing one of these things, right, against their will. And then, of course, when you're talking about a child cannot consent to sex, and that's where the lack of consent exists, and so it would also be a form of sexual abuse as well. Now, again, just to reiterate one more time, if you look at the examples here on the screen, some of them or most of them could fall under gender-based violence, broadly speaking. The reason why we have highlighted this and said this is sexual exploitation, this sexual abuse, is because in these circumstances, the perpetrators are UNHCR staff or persons who work with UNHCR partners. This could include doctors, volunteers, drivers, teachers, interpreters. All of these would fall under this definition of UNHCR partners, staff, and associate affiliated staff. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a few scenarios here, and I just want you to think about it, whether this is true or false, and I'll then I'll walk through them with you. The first one is, I suspect that the situation of SEA is happening. I should verify this before I make a report to make sure my suspicions are correct and to find out more information. So, if, for example, we take one of the scenarios that were shown in the past slide, where you hear that a UNHCR caseworker had raped a refugee woman, and you think to yourself, this was told to me by somebody from my community. Maybe I need to go and speak to the victim first to make sure that this is correct. Or maybe I need to dig up more information about this. Is that true or false? Now, in this situation, this is false. If you do suspect that a situation of FCA is happening, we do not ask you to further verify it or further investigate the matter. Please leave that investigation to UNHCR or our partners, but we would ask that you report this to us, and I will show you in a little bit how you can make that report. Now, true or false, I can report SCA cases anonymously if I prefer, meaning that if I hear about a UNHCR staff refusing to register an asylum seeker unless that person sleeps with them, and you say, okay, I would like to report this to UNHCR, but I don't want to reveal my name, my identity, my contact number. Can I do that or not? This is true in this case. You can report SCA cases anonymously if you prefer. Now, your question might be, how is it that I can report this anonymously if I am going to be reporting directly to UNHCR? Wouldn't UNHCR be able to see my email address or my phone number or something like that? Well, we will show you in a little bit how is it that you can report SCA cases anonymously. Third question, once I've reported SEA, my identity will be protected by the same level of confidentiality as for the victims or other witnesses. Just for your information, when a SEA victim is identified, there is a confidentiality that kicks in where UNHCR and our partners ensure that the identity of the victim is protected from the general public, from the community, making sure that they are not exposed, because if they are exposed, it could cause them to come into harm or retaliation. And so there is a strict level of confidentiality when it comes to SEA victims. The question is, will your identity, if you report an SEA case and you're not the victim, but you're somebody who has heard that SEA has occurred, will it be protected to the same level as well? In this case, it's true. Your identity will be protected as part of this. However, once you are part of the investigation process, there may come a point when you are asked if you will be willing to reveal your identity in order to aid with the investigation and with the disciplinary process. However, at that point, it is well within your rights to choose whether you would like your identity to be revealed or not. Okay, next question. Once I have reported SEA, I will be kept updated on the investigation and informed of the outcome. So you have found out, for example, that a UNHCR partner who hired a teacher who's teaching in a refugee school, the refugee teacher had molested a young refugee girl, right? You found out about it and then you reported it. Once you have reported it, will you be kept updated on the investigation and be informed of the outcome? For example, you will they tell you that okay, the investigation has been completed, the disciplinary process is over, and the teacher has been uh, has has had certain disciplinary action been taken. For example, that they have been fired from their job. Is this true or false? Now, in this situation, it is false. Once you have reported SEA, the only person who will be kept updated on the investigations and informed of the outcome is going to be the victim, the person most affected by the case. So once you have reported SEA to us, to UNHCR, that will probably be the end of the communication unless you are going to be brought in as part of the investigation and disciplinary process as a witness. But even then, the outcome of it will not be revealed to you. It will only be revealed to the victim. Okay, you discovered that a community leader has engaged in SEA. You should ask them for an explanation and inform them that their behavior is unacceptable as a precautionary or protective measure to make sure they do not do any further harm. Now, this is obviously a reaction that is quite common where you hear that somebody who you trust or somebody in your community has committed something that is rather terrible, and you want to make sure that other people in your community are safe, right? So if you know, for example, that the community leader has access to is perhaps working as an interpreter for an NGO, and they have access to vulnerable asylum seekers or refugees every single day, and you want to make sure that hey, they don't do this again. What they have done, you've heard that they have maybe raped somebody who had asylum seeker who had come to the NGO seeking for help, right? So you say, I'm going to confront this person. I'm going to tell them, don't do this anymore. Your behavior is unacceptable. Should you do that or not? Now, in this scenario, similar to the first one about investigation and or taking any action on your own to verify the situation, this is also false. Please do not confront anybody who you find out to be have committed SCA, because this could lead them to do certain things like confront the victim and thus putting the victim in further danger. This could also lead to situations where they try to cover up their tracks by removing evidence or deleting evidence or threatening witnesses to make sure that they don't speak up. And this could have unintended consequences for the investigation process. So please do not confront persons who you suspect or who you've been told or who you find out have been engaged in SEA. And we would ask that you report the matter. Now, I'm going to give you a certain case scenario just to further flesh this out for you, and then maybe help us to walk through what we can do in certain situations when SEA has occurred. So, a refugee member of your community tells you that a UNHCR partner staff has been coming to their house to have house visits and tuition with their younger sister, who's age 15. The staff comes and their parents are not around, when we'll always bring the sister into a room and lock the door. The community member is worried about what is happening. She has tried asking her sister, but the sister does not want to say anything. The UNHCR partner provides valuable services to the community, and the community member does not want to jeopardize this. She is also worried that the younger sister might be harmed and asks if you can protect her. Is this a case of SEA? And why would you say that this is the case of SEA? Now, let's just walk through what we see here on the screen. The staff has come to the house regularly to meet with the girl who is under the age of 15, will bring her into a room and lock the door. However, we don't know anything beyond that because the person who is telling you about this has not seen or heard what's going on behind that door, and the sister has not revealed what happens behind that door. However, is there any suspicion that something inappropriate is going on? Yes, there is. And so in this situation, is this a case of SEA? Can we say 100% yes, SEA has occurred? No, we cannot say with 100% certainty that there's SEA occurring. But is there a suspicion that SEA is occurring? Yes. And what we would ask you to do is that if there is a suspicion of SEA, that you should report it. You should let UNHCR or one of our reporting partners know that this situation is happening so that we can investigate the matter to find out definitively whether SEA is occurring or not. So in many situations of SEA, you might not know 100% that SEA is occurring. You might not have a video or picture that depicts SEA happening. You might not have the victim themselves saying, yes, this is what has happened. The UNHCR staff has raped me, or the UNHCR partner staff has touched me inappropriately, or has sent me inappropriate messages. You might not have any of that. But what you would have would be circumstances that are highly suspicious that could be SEA, and we would ask that in those situations that you would report them. Now, the second question, how should you respond to the community member's request for protection for her younger sister? Now, in this situation, it is a valid concern. The community member has highlighted and said that the partner, they provide valuable services from the community. If we report anything against this partner, what if they withdraw their services from the community? That is something that we have heard as a valid fear from people before. There's also the question of protection for the younger sister. She's just 15 years old, right? She is vulnerable. What if the partner staff finds out that the report has been made and then chooses to attack the younger sister or attack the family? We have heard of cases before where retaliation has been threatened, right? Where they say, if you do this, I'm going to do this, this, this. So this request for protection is one that it's a valid concern. How should you respond to the request for protection? So what UNHCR would do is when a case like this is brought to us, we will work together with the UNHCR partner, where the staff is from, to make sure that protection is afforded to the person who has come forward, as well as to the victim. The form of the protection can be various things. We will look into making sure that one of the things that we do, for example, is having a zero retaliation policy, where if any of our staff or any of our partner staff were to retaliate against such a report, and retaliate means to either threaten or to harm somebody who has made a report, in that situation automatically is a fireable offense. So there's a zero tolerance for retaliation. We will also look into how we can offer protection to the victim and to their family to make sure that during the course of the investigation, that they know where they can get protection from, that they are able to contact somebody if they need further help, and then to look into the different services that are available to them. So if the community members has a request for protection, you can let them know when you have made this report. UNHCR will work together with relevant partners in order to make sure that the victim, as well as their family, and any whistleblowers, meaning anybody who comes forward to report this, is offered necessary protection. Okay, we want to look at the situation of coming forward, and why we want to look at this. We want to ask ourselves, imagine being a victim of SCA, and how would you come forward in search of support? Now, the reason why SEA, again, to reiterate, why UNHCR takes such a strong stance against SEA is because it is being committed against vulnerable persons by the people who they put a huge amount of trust in. Persons working for under the in the UN, for UNHCR, for one of UNHCR partners, are trusted by our beneficiaries, by refugees and asylum seekers, to provide them with aid, to provide them with support, and for us to commit this kind of acts is a severe breach of trust. Imagine that if you are a victim of SPA and your trust in a partner organization of UNHCR or your trust in UNHCR has already been voided or has already been damaged because of what you have gone through, how will you then come forward and say your support? Would this be something difficult for you to talk about? Would this be something that you might feel ashamed or afraid to bring up? It's usually yes and yes in a lot of cases, where victims we have spoken to have said that they don't know who to reach out to. They are not sure what kind of protections will be afforded to them. They don't know if they can trust UNHCR or our partners anymore. And so, what we want to talk about here is the victim centered approach, or rather, how is it that we can speak or treat people who have come forward to speak to us about SCA. And these are things that you could also adopt if somebody were to come to you um, and say that they are a victim of SCA. One of them is ask and listen. So it's a question of just asking them in an open-ended manner, saying, yes, okay, so this has happened to you. Can you give me a bit more information about what has happened? Not to interrogate them, not to say, I need to know exactly, when did it happen? What did he do? What was he wearing? Where exactly this take place in which room? Not to that extent, but just to sit down and listen to them and say, okay, yeah, just let me know, share with me what you're comfortable sharing, right? It's also looking at things like confidentiality and informed consent. Confidentiality would be if you tell me about SCA, I'm not going to blast it out on WhatsApp to the community. I'm not going to tell every single community leader that this has happened. I'm going to respect your privacy. I'm going to speak to make a report to the people that you say that I can make a report to, right? And that's where the informed consent comes in. So somebody who has shared SEA to you, you say, okay, I know how to report this matter. Do I have your consent to report on your behalf, right? There's also giving back control, and one of the ways that you give back control is that you can give them information, share with them, and say, look, this is the way that you can report what has happened to you. These are the different services that are available to you, right? And you can choose to make the report. This is how you do it, and you can do it when you feel comfortable doing it. Giving them back the control of the narrative of what has happened to them and giving them information so that they can make informed decisions on what they should be doing. Child victims, you want to make sure to exercise even more caution when you're working with them, just to make sure that they have the different their needs are being met. Child victims are going to be definitely be extremely vulnerable. So making sure that they understand what are the different services and help that they can get, making sure that they are in a safe space, making sure that they are connected to the different services that they can reach out to. Those are all really, really important things. Um, yeah, so these are some of the things that you want to think about when we are talking about a victim-centered approach, or how is it that we can speak to and approach anybody who comes forward and tells us that they have been a victim of SEA. So we empathize with them. We want to make sure that we listen. And what we mean by empathize is that we tell them, I am sorry that you have gone through something like this. This is something that nobody else should have had to go through. When we listen to them, we give them the space to be able to tell what has happened to them, right? And then we act. And how we act is that we want to link them up with the different services. Now, I've spoken a lot about the reporting and linking up to services. So, how is it that we can do that? So, the first way that we can do that is that we can report these cases to UNHCR, to what is known as the Inspector General's Office, or to WAO, Women's Aid Organization, who are UNHCR's SCA reporting partner. I want to talk about the IGO because you might be familiar with UNHCR and WAO, but you might not be familiar with the IGO. Now, the IGO again stands for the Inspector General's Office. They are an independent body within UNHCR which investigates all these forms of wrongdoing. So, if SCA occurs and you hear of such a case and you feel I don't trust to tell UNHCR Malaysia, you can actually report directly to the IGO and say, this is something that has occurred here in my community, or this has been something that has been committed by staff of UNHCR Malaysia or one of UNHCR Malaysia's partners. Please investigate this matter. And I will show you how you can report to the IGO very soon. We also ask that what you can do is you can connect the complainant or the victim to support. For example, case management services from WAO. What is case management? So case management is a service that is provided to SCA victims or survivors, where a caseworker will sit down with them, assess their situation, right? And then they will see what their needs are. And once you understand what the needs are, they will then either provide services that their agency has. So, for example, WO provides things like shelter, things like assistance in making police reports. In some cases, they can provide legal aid. They can also provide links to counseling services. And if there's something the WO themselves cannot provide, they would link them up with service providers who can provide what the person needs, right? But when we are connecting them to these different agencies for help, always respect the complainants or the victim's wishes when it comes to connecting them to support. This is where the consent, informed consent comes in. So if the person says, I don't want you to link me to WAO, please do not do it. Give them the opportunity to decide for themselves where they would like to be linked to. What we can do is provide them the information on where they can go. Now, the IGO, as I mentioned, this is how you can contact them. You can email them, you can go to their website, or you can use fax. If you want to find out more about the IGO, you can see this on the screen here. Now, again, your question might be, if I write an email to the IGO, wouldn't that mean that my identity is already revealed? That is true. So if you would like to uh, report confidential in a confidential manner, you can actually go to the website that is shown here on the screen. It's a complaints form that you can fill up anonymously and report. You can choose to report and give your details as well if you would like through the website. In fact, my recommendation would be to use the website if you would like to report anything to the IGO, because what this does is that it helps guide you through some of the information that needs to be provided in order for them to take action. Now, what you're seeing here on the screen right now is the it's a brochure on PSEA, which you can actually find on the UNHCR Malaysia uh, website under the gender-based violence support page. Okay, so it has there, it covers the definitions of what sexual exploitation is, what sexual abuse is, our zero tolerance policy against SCA, and then how to report. And this is the hotline and then the SMS which you can reach out to WAO. Please note that the information that's provided here might be a little bit out of date already. The hotline especially has the hours that have been updated. If you go to the website, which is here, you can see the website on the screen right now. You can then see the updated time for WAO's hotline to when you can report to them. Like you can see now on the screen, Monday to Friday is 9 to 5 p.m. and Saturday to Sunday it's 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Their SMS or WhatsApp service is available 24 hours. And then there as well on the website, you can see the online reporting form, which you should use if you'd like to report directly to the IGO about SEA cases. Okay, so what happens after a report is made? Firstly, UNHCR will look into victim support. So we will, like I mentioned, work together with relevant partners to provide assistance to the victim to make sure that their protection is covered, that their whatever needs they might have especially those that are linked to the act that was committed against them, are going to be met. Yeah, so um, that's the first thing that will happen. Then there will be an investigation to the matter. The investigation will usually be led by the organization from which the complaint has originated from. So, for example, if you have made a complaint against a person who works for UNHCR Partner A, UNHCR Partner A is the one that will conduct the investigations under supervision by UNHCR Malaysia as well as the IGO. And then finally, there will be a disciplinary action that is taken. So once the investigation is completed, it is found that it is substantiated, meaning that it is found that the act, the SCA, in fact took place. Then it is up to the partner or to UNHCR, if it's a UNHCR staff, to then take action. I just want you to know that the limit to the disciplinary action that can be taken, the maximum that can be done is going to be firing from the organization. Now, you might say this doesn't sound like it is the heaviest kind of disciplinary action that can be taken. However, because UNHCR and our partners are not protection agencies, we are not the government, we are not an agency that can run, for example, a criminal justice investigation. The maximum that we can do is to terminate a person's contract and then also to blacklist the person to make sure that they are not further hired by any other UN agencies or any of our partners. What this also means to say is that there is nothing stopping a person from making a report to the IGO or UNHCR or WAO about SCA, as well as making a police report in order to kickstart a criminal justice investigation. Both of them can be done at the same time. So if something has occurred, so for example, if a UNHCR staff has raped a refugee, we would ask that you please report this matter as an SCA matter to UNHCR or the IGO or WAO, but you can also make a report to the police in order for the police to investigate the matter and take criminal action if necessary. That part of supporting in making a police report is also something that we can look at as far as the victim support is concerned. So if the victim has not made the police report yet, and they tell UNHCR or our partner that they would like to make a police report, we will look into ways that we can support them in making that police report. Okay, that is the end of the presentation.